Remember when COVID was such a threat to society that entire economies needed to be shut down? Old people had to spend their dying days isolated in nursing homes. Kids were banned from playgrounds, and everyone else was forced to stay home wearing a mask and watching Netflix? Well, of course, we know not anymore, because the fears that gripped the world a mere 6 months ago are fading faster than the sniffles after a positive rat test. Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the paranoia about COVID can disappear this quickly, might the existential terror of climate change be the next thing to go? Let's find out as we go, busting the narrative. Now, amid all the noise about the war in Ukraine, the Australian federal election, Elon Musk's hostile takeover bid for Twitter, and Joe Biden's endless, never-ending series of public gaffes, it was easy to miss the release of the latest report from the International Panel on Climate Change on April 5th. Now, before you think that's snoozeworthy, have a listen to this, because rather than snoozy, it was a doozy. The IPCC is still, 34 years after being founded, predicting that we are all going to die in a biblical maelstrom of freezing ice, ocean evaporating heat waves, violent tornadoes, plagues of locusts, frogs, the whole Old Testament works, if, and only if, we don't have our emissions by 2030. Now, until now, the IPCC's raison d'etre has been to persuade governments and big business to enforce the type of restrictions it thought were necessary to avoid this climate catastrophe. Originally, the avenue to go down was something called emissions trading, but more recently, they're going down the road of net zero targets. But, as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres furiously says, this strategy has been less successful than he had hoped.
Some government and business leaders are saying one thing but doing another. Simply put, they are lying.
Interesting, isn't it? Not only are the people who attend global climate change meetings hypocrites for flying there in greenhouse gas-spewing airplanes and staying at luxury hotels in the first place, they are also, it turns out, hypocrites for signing up to whatever climate action is deemed necessary and then returning home and doing 2/5 of nothing at all. The latest IPCC report has not given up on governments as big business, however, but it does seem to have lost interest in them. They've got a new target. While the report spouts the usual platitudes about the need for systematic reductions in emissions, they are mostly references to vague international cooperation, pathways to decarbonization, and theories about energy efficiency. The most exciting part of the report, though, is the bit where the IPCC introduces a whole new strategy involving a whole new demographic. Yes, that's right. It's you. Well, hang on, maybe not precisely you precisely, but just the millions or even billions of people the IPCC thinks agree with them that the end of the world is nigh and are prepared to make personal adjustments, so to speak, in their own lives to prevent it. The report found 60 ways ordinary people can reduce their negative impact on the weather by, among other things, using bikes instead of cars, not flying or even using electrical appliances as often, and eating vegan food instead of meat. Yum. This, of course, is contrary to the lifestyles of the most famous purveyors of climate catastrophism, but that's another story. Popular Science reported that the IPCC has brought something new to the table, the importance of shifting society's demand for products and services, and how that can lower emissions. This is interesting because it is the first time that the report has zeroed in on how people's individual behavior can make or be made to make a difference. But having learned that these ideas are hard to sell, the IPCC has added a new spin to its strategy. Not only will these lifestyle changes save the planet, they will also, guess what? Make your life better. The report speculates that it is possible to reduce global energy demand while maintaining or improving the well-being of everyone in the world. It does this how? Well, not by measuring well-being in terms of income or cars in the garage or the number of overseas holidays you can afford to take, but Whether you meet what the report calls, and gosh, this sounds just so inviting, a decent living standard, which is minimum levels of health, nutrition, and shelter, all of which may vary according to the culture and prosperity of the surrounding society. In other words, it doesn't mean much at all. In fact, it probably means the quality of your life will diminish while other people get richer. Does this remind you of something? Yeah, that's right. The World Economic Forum's famous advertisement for its future utopia, telling you that you will own nothing and you'll be happy about it. If that's actually what the IPCC is selling these days, of course, nobody's buying. And one day, we will look back on all this catastrophism and, just like COVID, wonder what on earth we were so worried about. Thanks for watching. I'm James Morrow, and if you'd like to support this channel, please like, share, and subscribe below. And I'll see you next week for more Busting the Narrative.